Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started. Again, good evening again. I am Angela Charles, and I am the Director of Charlotte Water, and I want to begin by thanking you for attending our public notification meeting that's associated with Charlotte Water's Interbasin transfer modification request. So why are we in South Carolina? And there's a simple answer to this question. And that is that water does not follow geographical boundaries. So we felt it important to have these public meetings in areas, not just in North Carolina, but also upstream and downstream of our utility. And so Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Charlotte Water is on the state line. And so we felt it important to come to this area to discuss our modification request and also to meet with the public and entertain comments and questions. Before I go further, I do want to introduce or have folks with me who will be making a presentation, introduce themselves. So we will start with Ron.
Yeah, Ron Hargrove. I'm one of the deputy directors at Charlotte Water.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lynn Peel. I'm the Supply Planning Program Supervisor with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality within the Division of Water Resources.
Good evening. My name is Rob Devlin. I'm the Assistant Bureau Chief in the Bureau of Water with the Department of Health, Environmental Control, DHEC, to be DES, Department of Environmental Services.
So thank you again for those introductions. This is a public notification meeting. And what is this meeting about? I do want to clear up one misunderstanding about our request. Charlotte Water is not asking for permission to withdraw more water out of the Catawba River. And so we've had meetings prior to this one, and what we found is that that's a big misunderstanding. That's not what the modification request is about. We are exploring the need to increase the amount of water we are allowed to transfer to the Rocky River Basin. And for our South Carolina folks, the Rocky River is a sub-basin of the Yadkin PD Basin. So you may be more familiar with that. So our agenda, and you can tell I'm Southern. I've already said hour instead of hour, okay? We'll have opening remarks by Rob Devlin from South Carolina DHEC. Then Lynn Peel from the North Carolina DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, will give a program overview. That's important because our utility falls, under the North Carolina side, North Carolina DEQ. Then Ron Hargrove, Deputy Director, will talk more about our request. And then I'll come up and tell you how you can participate more in this process. So Rob, I'm going to hand it over to you for some comments, and then we will come up.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Rob Devlin. I'm with the Department of Health and Environmental Control. And again, on Monday, July 1, we'll become the Department of Environmental Services. Can everybody hear me? Good, good. So I appreciate the opportunity to be up here tonight and to address you guys and what South Carolina Department of Environmental Control is, what our potential process will be. So tonight, Charlotte Water is coming here and saying that we would like to explore some more water. In South Carolina Health and Environmental Control, we're here to listen to what they're bringing up to us. And as we go through this multi-year process, and I will let you guys know, this is the first of many steps that you're about to see from them. And this is just the beginning where they're going to tell us what they're asking to look for. So as South Carolina, DHEC, Bureau of Water, we're in charge of the state's water resources and both permitting from water quantity standpoint as well as water quality standpoint. So it's very important for us to be engaged with North Carolina and with DEQ to oversee how this might potentially affect the people of South Carolina and our rivers and our streams for both agricultural use, business use, industry, farmers, as well as recreation, and the people that live on the lakes and the rivers, the people who fish and canoe. So it's to Charlotte, they've elected to come here and give us an opportunity to hear what they have to say about what their needs are and what they're hoping to look for in the next few months. And as they're doing that, we will be evaluating the technical and scientific data that they will be using in order to bring to North Carolina for this request. So we will be working very closely with them on behalf of the people of the state of South Carolina. So I appreciate your opportunity, and I'm going to be around this afternoon for any questions if anybody has any. Hand it over to Louis.
Good evening again. Okay. Thank you. Good evening again. My name is Linwood Peel, and as I said, I manage the water supply planning program. Within my branch, I have 13 different statewide programs, and one of them is Interbasin transfer. Context of what I am. Tonight, I'm going to just give you a basic of North Carolina Interbasin transfer, kind of definition and purpose of the IBT program. Talk about the law, the statutory requirements, talk about the IBT process, and give you an idea of the size and scope of the IBT program within North Carolina. And last count, the EMC, what they consider in their decisions to issue a certificate. And once I go through this, it'll give you kind of scale of how IBT is looked at. First, kind of talk about the definition to put everybody on the same playing field. The Interbasin transfer law was established in 1993. And so we just celebrated last year our 30th anniversary of the program. And, I don't want to jump ahead of myself and give you an idea. Since the program started, we have 9 certificates issued in North Carolina in 30 years. But the General Assembly has added edits or comments or additions to the IBT at least 22 times in the last 30 years. So just give you an idea how this is looked at and scrutinized. But jumping right into it, is to withdraw surface water from one basin and transferring to another basin. Part of it is some of it to anytime you use surface water transfer in North Carolina, you have to denote it for the Division of Water Resources. And the purpose of Interbasin transfer, and this came directly from the General Assembly, said to ensure that we're doing good public policy from moving from one basin to another basin. Whether it's major basin or sub basin, you have to do the same. I guess the law itself, and it's triggered through 3 key and important things. First, if you initiate a transfer of 2 million gallons of water a day, which is calculated on average monthly, so we basically look at the next month of that year. If you go over 2 million gallons, you're required to get a certificate. Of course, we're monitoring those in North Carolina to make sure that you have a certificate before you go over. But also not to exceed 3 million gallons any given day. And that's peaking factors in water treatment plant, sending it over. The second is the increase in the amount of an existing transfer from one river basin by 25%. In North Carolina, we've never triggered that at the beginning. And the third, increase in existing transfer of water from one river basin to another river basin after getting a certificate. And that's when people come in for a modification. When they get 80% of what their certificate is, they have to start planning, and 90% you need to have something in place. And I'll get back to that a little bit later. Next, we've heard this several times. This is almost a cartoon drawing, but it gives you an idea of what is the transfer. And it's important to know this. just because of the way North Carolina water systems or water systems throughout the United States or anywhere is. But to give you an idea, it's the town, the circle, that's the service area of that town. So to do a transfer, and we always look at net transfer, not the total. For instance, this first example show you that the town itself, the top one, withdraws 10 MGD from their source in the source basin. In this case, that would be the Catawba River. The town is built on a ridge line. And you know, throughout US history, post office and everything is built on high ground. So most people build on high ground and the valley is play. In this case, that circle represents a town. So it withdraws 10. They consume it through either septic systems, 2 MGD, or it could be irrigation, it could be water use that doesn't go back into the river itself. Then 3 on the other side, and they submit discharge 5 MGD to another the receiving basin. In that case, the actual IBT transfer is 8. So it's not 10. They're withdrawing 10, but they're keeping 2 because they're using it in septics on their side or in some type of way it's consumption use. The second one is where you have a system representing the town in green. They're withdrawing 10, but the town is in a whole nother basin. They're not building a ridge line, they're in a whole nother basin. But they send back 5 MGD. So the net there in that case is 5. And that's important to understand that in the process, because we hear a lot, why don't everyone, if they take it out, send it all the way back? Some systems in the law, I'll get into that a little bit more, but the law was established in 1993, as I said earlier. And it was water systems built all over, and they already had a called pre-existing transfer amount. So you had to take that into effect. Next, I talk about river basins a lot. North Carolina, as you can see, the color code, they have 18 major basins. It doesn't matter if it's a major basin or sub basin, you still have to get a certificate as of right now. And that gives an idea there. But if you look at the sub basins, there's 33. And I've heard several times different people, legislators as well, talking about the makeup of the basin itself. Should we have only 18 or should we have 33? Right now, the law is we have 33, and we have to continue to monitor that process and follow the law and get a certificate in that. Next, to give you an idea, as I said, the size and scope. In North Carolina, we require since 1993 to survey all of the systems, and these are systems that are required to do a low water supply plan. It's 550 approximately. I think it's 554 to be exact. But of those 554, only 130 of the water supply systems transfer water. Some of the amounts is less than 50,000 gallons a day. But it's 80% of them is less than 1 million gallons. So it's 130 out of 554 that does some type of transfer. You only have 9 IBT certificates have been issued. And as Charlotte is now going through a modification, they have one, and they're looking to increase it based on the information and the process and statute that we have in place. On one other one, went through that process, and that's carried, and they increased their based on the statute and the law itself as well. And grandfather allowance, for any system that have a grandfather in it. We have some systems that was built regularly in line to get all their water from one river basin and then pump it into the system and go to another basin and have grandfather as much as 50 million gallons a day because they were built prior to 1993. So we have a lot of systems with grandfather around. So that's just part of the process when the law came in 1993. And of course, we have, I think, 7 or 8 of them that actually is between 1 MGD and 2 MGD. So those are the ones that we're monitoring to make sure before they get over 2 MGD. And since I mentioned the 9, this is the 9, and I don't want to spend too much time and read everything to you, but you can see it. For instance, Piedmont Triad, before we even got the, 1993 law in place, they, went to the General Assembly and actually written in the General Assembly, the statutes to actually have an, IBT based on, and they get more from the deep and send some to the Hall and some to the Yadkin River Basin. Of course, y'all got theirs after the statute of 33 in 2002, and it goes from Catawba to the Rocky River. City of Concord, Kannapolis, some of you may remember how contentious that was. They got it from the Catawba and the Yadkin and sent it to the Rocky. Greenville Utilities, and all of, several of these have different. You remember I mentioned it was like 22 variations over the last 30 years change. For instance, Greenville Utilities, since they were in the Central Coast Plain and was groundwater use, the General Assembly wrote a statute because they're trying to get everybody off of groundwater because it's depletion of groundwater. And so it became and allowed a variance type process in their IBT. Same thing happened with Kerr Lake Regional System in that area because of Core Lake and in the area, they had a different type of variance in the statute, as well as Pender County and Brunswick County. So the statute changes almost every year since the statute came into place. And of course, you may be aware of Union County and town of Wingate, one of the recent ones that was contested as well, when we acted to the Rocky River as well. And kind of tell you, and I mentioned about the variance or the changes in the statute. The modification process is a little different than the traditional process. And in this case, the modification process are not required to do after submitting a notice of intent to request a modification. But with the South Carolina North Carolina agreement, Charlotte Board is going through a very stringent process due to that. But to give you an idea of at this stage, and I want to give you perspective of the time it takes to do this process. We've had right now we only have two in North Carolina that's going through the process: Fuquay Marina and Charlotte Board. Fuquay notice of intent came in, I think, August and September of 2000. We're still reviewing the EIS 4 years later. So it takes a while to get this done. Jumping on, and Ron will get into this a little bit, but once we get an initial document, we start rounds of reviews, working with the applicant consultant, to make sure we have adequate information to provide to the EMC, because DEQ doesn't make the decision. The Environmental Management Commission, and I use a lot of acronyms, so I want to make sure that I say this Environmental Management Commission is a governing board of 15 members appointed by the governor, the House, and the Senate. Once the document is submitted and we feel it's adequate after going through iterations, then it goes out again for public hearing. This actual public hearing where the EMC has a hearing officer and they take comments at that time as well. And then once we get that, we create a hearing officer report and so forth, and we make in this case, it's a FONSI, but in this case, it can be a record of decision because it's from the environmental impact statement. Then once we go to the EMC, they'll issue facts and inclusion. And as I mentioned earlier, when I said that the EMC decisions, I'm going to talk about their 9 decisions that they discussed. And of course, the final determination, they issue a final determination in EMC, not DEQ. And the EMC, one of the things when they make a decision, and it has happened in the 9 certificates, they can issue a petition, in part, or deny it, flat out deny it, or make require some mitigation measures to minimize detrimental effects. And they have required, different mitigations to minimize effects. In making their decision, these are the 9 factors that you have to, and what we like to tell people, if you're going to make comments, remember, by law, the General Assembly requires them to look at these things and make a decision. Sometimes, we bring in a lot of other things, but if you can get your comments based around these 9 factors, it would help the EMC make that, informed decision. And the first 2 is from the source basis, is this necessary? One of the things that we talk, and we have been working with Charlotte for a while on this. And we really explained that you want to make sure your, purpose and need is there. Because that's what the EMC asked us as staff. Is it clear? Is the purpose and need clear? Is it noted? Is it factual? And also, is it, present and reasonable foreseeable detriment in the solar basin? Is there anything that you can see there? And that's what the environmental document for. And a meeting like this is so preliminary. People are asking us these questions now. We don't know because we don't have a document to review. So we want to make that clear. And number three, that's the, cumulative effects on the source base. And here you have local water supply plan. And what we look at what is in their local water supply plan and what's in the environmental document. We want these to be the same because the local water supply plan, I didn't mention this, I'm sorry. But it's, they're required to submit them annually and we have to approve them annually. So it's not like they bring in a document that we haven't seen these numbers before. We have to approve local water supply plans every year. Four, the receiving basin. Is it going to be any effect, whether it's water quantity or quality? That has to be a part of that EIS. It has to be clear, and also the EIS, the environmental document has to show, is it reasonable alternatives? Are they looking at all the alternatives or just looking at one thing? So that's important for us to know, as well. Is it the use of impounded storage, capacity? That makes a difference. Run a river, or do you already have the water supply? In the case of Charlotte, they already have water supply. They already work with FERC and Duke Energy to have the water supply. It's not like it's a new source of water, which is more scrutiny, as well. Also, North Carolina has 4 core reservoirs. The statute clearly says the ocean go, those 4 reservoirs, that's a whole nother level of scrutiny that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have to look at water supply, make sure Congress actually allocated for water supply. Then whether the service areas, within both, source basin and receiving basin, that's one of the keys. And any other factor or circumstance reasonably necessary, that's a catch-all. And sometimes that can be really concerning with a lot of people because it brings in things that's not scientific or not based on impacting the environment. And lastly, when I mentioned about BMC required mitigation, every IBT certificate goes through a stringent process and a monitoring process. And one of the things like a water conservation plan, they're required within 90 days to submit a water conservation plan, a drought management plan. And they're already required to do a local response plan and a water shortage response plan, but a drought management plan is how you're going to preserve water during a drought, even on high level in the water shortage response plan. And then compliance and monitoring. Some of them do quarterly reporting, some do it annually reporting. It depends on the scrutiny that the EMC requires. And the ability to reopen, amend, and modify, that's important. And they asked us as staff, are they following what they said they're going to do? This is a 30-year window that we look at in the process of their population and demand. Everything is tracking during that time. So say for instance, it's them coming in and they're requesting, but they haven't used half, what they said they would do. That's the difference as well. And like I said, they can reopen it, they can make it smaller, modify it, whatever. And then, of course, one of the things, misconception, there is no sell or transfer reward. You're not on the certificate, you don't get the reward. So if y'all comes in, y'all or anyone come in, it has to be in the information of the mission certificate. So they're not getting more transfer reward to sell to someone else. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have. And it comes up at several by the Department of Management Commission. And then EMC may impose additional conditions as necessary if things change. And with that, I think we're going to hold questions to the end. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ron Hargrove is gonna come up and he's gonna tell us specifically about Charlotte Water's request, and then I'll come up and talk about how you can become more involved in the process.
Well, good evening again. My name is again Ron Hargrove, one of the deputy directors. All the treatment facilities and maintenance functions kind of roll up through me at Charlotte Water. But I appreciate y'all coming out tonight to listen to our information, and I know you'll have questions, so we look forward to those questions here at the end. Let me back up. We, through the process that Linwood described, we've had public meetings. We started in May up in the Hickory area. We've had two since then, and one in Charlotte, one in Albemarle, and now we're in the south part of the basin, the source basin in Camden. And tomorrow night, Thursday night, we're going to Florence on the receiving side. And then there's another meeting that we're planning later in July in Morganton area, north end of the basin. And then we'll have a final meeting somewhere in the Rock Hill area in late July. My piece of this talk will be share a little bit about Charlotte Water. What is an IBT? Covered that a little bit, but Charlotte specific numbers. Why is an IBT modification needed now? What the modification process and schedule that Linwood just described, what we've laid out as the process and schedule will be. What alternatives we've looked at today preliminarily just to determine if we needed to start thinking about filing any intent to seek a modification request. And then Angela will get up and talk about how folks can continue to participate in the public process, make comments, be involved as a stakeholder as we get into that engagement process. Charlotte Water, Mecklenburg County sits on the state line. I'm sure everybody knows where Charlotte is. Our service area includes all of the county. 30% of the county is in the Rocky River Basin, so the area and the dark blue there and the green is all across the ridge as we've described it. So any water that goes over there that doesn't come back to the Catawba Basin is a transfer. We serve customers about in every county around Charlotte through different connections. Some are wholesale customers, either water and sewer, or sometimes only water or only sewer. And they are both in the Catawba and the Rocky River Basins. We're the largest public utility, waste and water and wastewater utility in North Carolina and probably South Carolina too. And we serve a little over 1.1 million in our service area. We consider ourselves proactive planners. Linwood described the process about getting to 80% of your certificate. We've gotten our current certificate in 2002. You're required to look out 30 years as a forecast to determine how much transfer demand you may potentially have. So we were issued an initial certificate of 33 million gallons per day. And that's measured on the peak day. So the single day that you transfer the most amount of water is how you're measured according to the statute. And so we've hit that 8% in 2022. I'll show you some trends here soon. And so now we're looking at what happens over the next 30 years. And is there more transfer needed for that future, or are there other alternatives to that? I'll mention that we're a long-term partner with the Catawba Water Management Group. We're one of their founding members, and we participate. We're on their board, and we believe in that regional planning organization. They are tasked with planning for the whole river basin. They are also in charge of managing the drought monitoring advisory group. And all the participating utilities, should there be a drought, whether it's the far north end of the basin, whether it's in the Charlotte end, or whether it's down here in the southern end of the basin. If the triggers are tripped, all the utilities across the basin enter into conservation modes and requesting reductions in water usage across the basin. So we're members of that, and that's a key for us, because I'll talk about how we're relying on the Catawba Water Read and their planning to help inform this potential request that we made. So again, what is an interbasin transfer? Again, kind of the pictorial that Linwood shared. Catawba River, these are Charlotte specific numbers. So we would draw from a couple of intakes, average day of 117 million gallons a day. It's consumed in the Charlotte area, part of our service district, indicated by this circle crosses that ridge point. Some of that water is consumed in the Catawba, and most of it is discharged back to the Catawba. So all that doesn't meet a transfer definition. The amount that is consumed across the ridge through making product, irrigation, evaporation from cooling towers, or water that's discharged through wastewater treatment processes into the Rocky River Basin is a transfer. So that's the piece that we're talking about tonight, just that amount. And that's what we have the certification of 33 million gallons per day. I'm sorry, per peak day. How that happens, it's amazing to me. A lot of folks just don't understand the utility system and how the water cycle works in the utility system. So don't let me bore you with this, but I just wanted to point out, we don't just take water out of one river and pipe it and discharge it into a different basin. It works through our utility system. We would draw water out of the Catawba River in one of the reservoirs. There are a couple that we have intakes in. It's pumped to a water treatment plant. We treat it and pump it out to our customers. They use it for all their purposes, whether they're in the Catawba Basin or in the Rocky River Basin. That water is collected through wastewater collection, and it then goes to a wastewater treatment plant and is treated, and then it's discharged. In most cases, that occurs in the Catawba. Here you can see we have an intake in Lake Norman, intake in Mountain Island Lake. We have 3 water treatment plants. And then the orange dots here are wastewater treatment plants all in the Catawba Basin. So the 117 million gallons is taken out of the Catawba virtual intakes. It's treated all in the Catawba, and then it's pumped out and serves the entire community. The amount that goes across into these subbasins, which are all part of the Rocky River major subbasin to the Yadkin, is where the transfer occurs. Some of that water is consumed. Some of that water is used for irrigation, hot days like today. Some of that water is used for just making products. And then most of that water is discharged. We have one plant right on the edge of the county, our Mallard Creek wastewater treatment plant, that discharges into Mallard Creek, which is a tributary to Rocky River. And then we have an agreement with the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County, and they treat a portion of our wastewater flow. And so that water that's discharged there is a transfer. We have a very tiny plant that we got to help a really subdivision out with water issues, and they have a very small packaged wastewater plant. It's like 100,000 gallons a day. And that is also a transfer. So why do we need an IBT modification? Again, we have a 33 million gallon a day peak. You can see the red line here is that 33 million gallons. The blue trend chart is our peak days since 2005. You can see where in 2022, I think we hit 83% of our IBT certification. And so that got us started at looking at what do we do next. Luckily, 2023, that number came down. Our peak day in 2023 was 26 million, but you can see where the trend, if you look out in the future, where that could take us. And so we need to be planning for that and what occurs for our community. The gray line is what occurs on a daily basis. This is just an average day for us. So even though peak days may be in the high 20s, we are really average day about 20 million in transfer. But we do think with the growth the community sees in that Rocky River area, the 2030 time period will be at that 33 million gallon day limit. What is the modification process and schedule? Again, as Linwood said, we're very early on in this process. All we've done to date is we filed a notice of intent in February, and then that kicked us off into having all these public meetings. And so we are at step 2 of at least a 12, if not 15-step process that we're going through that has a lot of public input. We voluntarily chose to have an engagement process with stakeholders, key stakeholders that can represent interests, that can help inform the alternatives that we look for in developing our environmental documents. We voluntarily are seeking to have the EMC make a determination about is our environmental document adequate or not. That's an extra step that we signed up for. Again, another public process input to that step. And then ultimately, this point here is when we officially make a request. I know there's numbers that's been thrown out there about what Charlotte Water's asking for. We haven't made an official request. We developed trending, and people have picked up on where that trending takes you, and there's numbers out there. But we have officially not made a request to DEQ or the EMC about how much water Charlotte may need. I think, as Linwood would tell you, people make requests initially and the numbers change. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. It just depends on how it develops and how long it takes. Once we do make a request, it will go into the EMC's hands completely. They will determine their determination about this request, whether it's adequate or not. They'll tell us to go back to find more information, or they'll determine that it may be adequate. And if so, they will hold a public hearing. And again, the final step of the public process for folks to come and comment about what they determined, and then they'll finally issue their final statement on that. This is a process. This is a very streamlined process. We're not promoting that this is the schedule for it. This is just, if there was no opposition to it, nobody really cared about it, this is probably the quickest it could take. We don't expect it to be this quick. Our public meetings have been extended by probably double from what we started out with. We do plan to hold a stakeholder engagement process. We don't know how many workshops we will have. It depends on how many stakeholders who all wants to be involved and engaged, and how long that process takes. We're in the midst of finding a third-party facilitator to hold those engagement workshops. Once those are done, we'll go into developing whatever the alternatives that are the outcome of the stakeholder engagement workshops and developing an environmental document. We'll turn it over to DEQ to develop a draft EIS and have a record of decision that gets submitted to the Environmental Management Commission. They will hold this public hearing, which is another step of the public process. If it is determined to be adequate, they would then, we would make our official request for modification, whatever the volume would be, if that's what we choose. If there's not mitigating factors that precludes an IBT, which could potentially happen, it could reduce the amount of water that we may need for the next 30 years. But that would be the time to be making an official request. And then finally, it would get into the EMC's determination in that final public hearing. So we think that's literally years away from today. We have provided notice to lots of folks. We're in the lower part of the source basin today, and everyone from the far reaches of the north end of the Catawba all the way down to this area has been noticed as far as utilities and local government agencies and folks with water withdrawal certificates, IBT certificate holders. They've all been noticed, as well as folks that were parties to the North Carolina, South Carolina Supreme Court settlement. And we've noticed the NGOs, nonprofits, tribal governments, the COGS, industries that have intakes or discharges to the river, that kind of thing. We've done that both at the source and the receiving base. I mentioned that we looked at some alternatives just to determine if we needed to start thinking about an IBT modification. Some of those things that we looked at were alternatives like pumping wastewater back to the Catawba instead of treating it at our Mallard plant, building pump stations and pumping back across and treating it in facilities in the Catawba and then discharging it into creeks that would drain to the Catawba, flow to the Catawba. We looked at water reuse options. Water reuse is where we take effluent and we treat it to not potable standards, but it's a higher level treatment that could be reused for non-potable uses like irrigation. And so that water would offset the drinking water, the potable water that would be a transfer across the ridge if it was consumed as irrigation. We looked at expanding that. Our Mallard Creek plant has reuse capability. So we looked at how we could expand that system. We looked at developing new water sources in the Interbasin, kind of like the Union County example. We looked at also increasing our IBT through our modification requests. Things that were considered were capital costs, schedule, O&M costs, what's the benefit, risk, environmental factors, is it even feasible to be constructed? We looked at other alternatives that aren't even on the list. One would be, could we turn effluent into potable drinking water? That's not permittable in North Carolina. But we did look at even more alternatives than this. Again, just preliminarily, we didn't develop any environmental documents. We just wanted to see if it was even feasible to do some of these other things rather than make this initial step. We are looking for actionable alternatives that will be raised during the scoping and the workshops that I mentioned, and they will be considered. And then that would help further refine during the environmental impact statement development. So I'll turn it back over to Angela to finish this up.
Okay, thank you, Ron. So, how can the public comment and participate in this process? So the first thing we have here is attend a public meeting, which is what you all are doing right now. So thank you again for attending. We set up a website, and the website is charlottewateribt.org. It's like a repository. So if you want to look at meetings that we've held at other locations, and I know folks are going to that website because I've been teased about a meeting that we've had previously, it's there. All comments and emails that we are getting are also placed on this website. So the whole objective here is to be transparent. And so that's there. It's charlottewateribt.org. It's also an information source. So we know that there are folks in the community and other communities that we're visiting who may have questions. This presentation is also on this website. So again, everything that we're doing, including the meetings, is on this website. By the way, we're also live right now. So as we go through this process, folks are looking at us and at these meetings online as they occur. So again, that's our philosophy, and that's what we're doing here. If you have any comments, we have a person or persons too dedicated to checking out this email. That's ibtproject@charlottenc.gov, and we have been receiving comments and emails to this address, but it's ibtproject@charlottenc.gov. And then we are also taking the contents of those emails and we're placing them on the charlottewateribt.org website, okay? You can also, as Ron stated, comment on the draft EIS during the public hearing for determination of adequacy by the EMC. That's an opportunity to do that. That'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina. You can also comment during the EMC hearing on the draft IBT determination. So again, those are two opportunities for the public to comment directly to the EMC. You can also participate and or listen in on our stakeholder engagement workshops. And so let me share with you our thought on those more in-depth workshops and our intent. So the goal would be through meaningful stakeholder engagement to identify, as Ron has stated, actionable alternatives to this modification. And that all of that is done through engagement and also evaluate some alternatives. We are looking for stakeholders to represent key and diverse interests in the workshop. So workshops, this is a public notification meeting. Workshops would be more in-depth session facilitated to really talk about our requests. And also the stakeholders will have the ability to shape alternatives that will be considered as we go through this process. We planning to conduct stakeholder workshops in the fall of 2024. We are now interviewing for professional facilitators to conduct this type of workshop who understands somewhat about environmental issues. There will be more than one workshop. We're pretty sure of that because you have separate interests and different interests that we feel like would be helpful. And the meeting format will be in person and virtual. We're taking advantage of the technology that we have today that of course, we want to have workshops in different areas, but also if someone is in a location they really want to participate, can't drive, we can also have participation virtually if we want to use the technology. In terms of public outreach and engagement, that also runs parallel with the engaged stakeholder workshops. And so we have decided that we want to live stream the workshops, just like this meeting now is being streamed live. And also the latest information from the workshops, again, will be kept at what I'm calling the main repository, but the Charlotte Water IBT.org website will be the one place for everyone to go to. Okay, so public meetings, this is our fourth one, Thursday. I think it was Thursday in Florence. Are we Florence tomorrow? We're Florence Thursday, says Wednesday up here. Okay, so I just noticed that, so we need to change that. So day after tomorrow, we are in Florence at Francis Marion University. That'll be at 6 o'clock. And so again, remember, we got the Rocky River, which is on the other side of the bridge. That is a sub-basin of the Yadkin PD. And so if you remember the map that Ron showed, that Florence would be in that line of communities there. And so we will be in Florence day after tomorrow. We will be returning back to the Hickory, Morganton area. That meeting is scheduled for Monday, July the 15th. And then we most recently have added one last meeting, and that one will be in Rock Hill, and it's tentatively scheduled for we're looking at either the 29th or the 30th. We're trying to firm that up, and that would be the end of July. Okay, so I hope this has been informative. We appreciate your attendance tonight. We have a fantastic panel up here, and we will now open the floor for questions and or comments. So let me say something about questions and comments. We are also logging those questions and comments, all the comments and questions we get today, and they will also be on the Charlotte Water IBT.org site. And so if we can get a microphone to the gentleman.
I won't pay for it.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's capable of hearing me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Clint Baxley. I'm a lifelong Kershaw County resident, minus about, I don't know, 19 and a half years in the Army. 9 of that in the Middle East, currently battling stage 4 cancer. First of all, thank you all for coming. 2 of you are sort of ancillary to our concerns. 2 of you are extremely important. Now, tonight, you've given us a lot of information on North Carolina law, North Carolina code. I think that's the correct term. I've got a couple of attorneys in the room, at least one cousin in here, none of which is relevant to us. What's relevant to us is that this lake was built in 1919. Most of our local economy was built either on tourism around the lake or tourism concerning horses, both of which are on tonight's docket. For those of you who are not over at the government center arguing about the new development at the training center. What concerns us, what concerns me, I'm a property owner at Lake Watery, or to be more specific, myself, my older brother, my older sister own a piece of property. What concerns us is that we already have environmental concerns about effluent coming downstream and the carrying capacity for contaminants. If we take more water out of the upper water area, out of the Catawba, and transfer it to another basin, what does that do, DHEC? What does that do to our carrying capacity for future development or future bidding concerns? Now, I have an 11-year-old daughter. I cannot put her on the dock at Lake Watery with a brim buster and let her catch an afternoon's worth of fish and teach her how to scale fish and eat it. Why? Because we have an overabundance of toxins in the water. We have a former senator and Kershaw County resident who is currently working to improve that, or to at least address or redress concerns with Duke Power regarding some of that contamination. If we then take more water out of our basin and increase the density of the pollutants and the contaminants, what does that do for our future? Now, I noticed very close to the end, sir, and I remember it, very close to the end, you said you looked at some alternatives. I realize they're not extremely financially feasible to reprocess all of that water, treat all of that water, and put it back into the basin. But where does that leave us? An hour and a half downstream. I know you guys are going through growth. I go to Charlotte, I fly through there. I have to go all the way to Nashville for cancer treatment every 2 weeks. Where does that leave us? I have a cousin over here that lives on the lake. Where does that leave her? So any decisions that we make moving forward have to look at the quality of life that we have now, here in Camden, here in Kershaw County, and our quality of life moving forward. Just as you guys in Charlotte, and again, I appreciate you guys being here, but it's a little bit irrelevant this early in the game, right? I know you guys are making a question. I'm not trying to belittle you by any stretch. But what does it do to our quality of life? I grew up eating fish out of that lake. Now we know I'm 52, almost 53. We know that 30 years downstream, 40 years downstream, that might not have been the smartest move. But what are we going to do? If we take, so everybody understands, if they take more water out, then the contaminants that are already there are going to become more dense. And for what? What does it do for us? What do we get out of it? I am glad that you guys are giving us the opportunity to comment. But I won't, and I love Charlotte. I got friends that live there. I got relatives that live there. But I want you guys to think about what you guys are already doing to us downstream, what's already happening to us. And it's not just you guys. We got folks from Columbia too. We got interbasin transfers coming from the Broad River. I'm sure you guys that, DHEC and you guys, y'all probably already know that. We got interbasin transfers, Wildcat, you guys familiar with over in Lugoff. They're already getting water from Columbia, and then that effluent is then coming into the water through a very long pipe. If you guys remember the construction on I-20 a couple of years ago. So if it weren't for that, these folks might have a little more legal, right? That didn't happen with a local government at the time. So again, I'm glad that you guys would come. I'm glad that you guys have brought this to light. But we've got to find better common ground than just, when the Secretary General had left the room, everybody's name. We got to find better ground that gives us better water quality. So you mentioned some real interesting stuff, okay? And I know I already called you irrelevant. I wasn't trying to make you mad. If you can figure out a way to make what we've got better already, to help mitigate what you guys might do long-term downstream, I think that's your hill to climb. Rather than saying, this is what we want to do, and these are the alternatives we've looked at already, and that's where we're at. Does that make sense?
So, sir, can I make sure?
I'll leave you alone. Yeah, sure.
Your comment was a quality of life
Sure.
comment. How
Sure.
does the request impact quality of life and water quality? I heard water quality.
Right, so
I wanted to bring it.
Yeah,
down
go ahead.
to it. And
So
just
your
comment-
hard-boiled egg there,
Yeah.
your hard-boiled egg is, we are already suffering in Camden and Kershaw County in the Wateree River Basin. So let's make that better before we try to make it worse. Or if you can figure out a way, you guys are the pros, if you can figure out a way to make that happen concurrently, I think we'd be all be a lot happier. And that's it.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am. And Leslie, or who has the, if you could get the mic over there and, okay, thank you.
My name is Michelle Henderson. I'm a resident of Lake Wateree. I'm a transplant from all over the place. My husband more or less grew up on the lake. He can talk about how the quality has changed. I keep hearing about increasing the supply of water. What's can be done on the demand side for the water? Are processes being considered to reduce the demand for water? Is it increasing the water prices in Charlotte? Would that provide additional resources to maybe go after a more expensive alternative that might not affect us? So we're looking at supply for water. What are we doing about the demand for water?
Right, and that is a very fair comment, and we are looking at the demand side, and more of those alternatives we will be exploring in the in-depth stakeholder workshop sessions that we are having. So that, very, very fair comment, have to look at both sides. And, many alternatives have been explored, but it's both sides.
Just to follow up, expound on that a little bit, in, 2011, North Carolina General Assembly required all municipal local governments to have a water efficiency, plan as a part of the local water supply plan. So in other words, to make it simple, they looked at all water system residential use and, over a period of time, they have to show how they can decrease the gallons per person per day. All as required throughout,
Or did you want to also chime in on the demand side?
Yeah. I mentioned that we're members of the Catawba Water Management Group. That group, is a group of utilities and Duke Energy that pulls resources to study the basin. They developed a model for the basin. Duke developed the first model when they did the comprehensive relicensing. That model's been updated. Supreme Court settlement charged the management group to keep the model, keep it updated every 10 years. That modeling results in outcomes that looks at water availability and what decade that may run out. And so it gets into some of the things you're talking about demand management, water loss efficiency. We're looking at new technologies to come in to help us determine better how we can find leaks and leaks of substance that we can eliminate. We're looking to employ smart metering technologies that can put, more control in our customers' hands, that they can get alerts on their telephones that tells them, hey, you got a water leak. And, getting that kind of intelligence in the user's hands to help curb the amount of water. We are part of the Drought Monitoring Advisory Committee. Regional drought planning is a piece of it as well. I mentioned that we're looking as an alternative at water reuse. And so how do we don't have a system for the public to gain access to that, but that could be a rate process that people are required to, if they want an irrigation connection, have reclaimed water for that and not potable water. So all those are alternatives, and you bring up a fair point that should be considered as alternatives going forward. So those are comments, I think, as Linwood pointed out, that would be very beneficial to be included in the comments that are made before August 3rd.
Yes, sir.
I think I can do this without a microphone.
Okay.
30 million gallons is a lot of water. You're already permitted to take 33. A million gallons of water is about 3.7 acre feet. That's 1 foot of water over 3.7 acres, if my math is correct. 30 million is 111 acres, and that's just one day on a peak. If you expand that over, and Watery Lake is about 13,000 acres. You expand that over the lake and over the whole acreage and over the year. And I know 30 million gallons, that equates just 30 million gallons. And I know, I'm not saying that that'll be the every day, but 30 million gallons over 365 days equates to about 3 foot of water in all of Watery Lake. That's a lot of lost hydro power as we're trying to look at alternative and go into green energy and look at alternative energy sources. There's multiple powerhouses up and down the Catawba from the where Charlotte Water pulls their water from, and the reduced electrical capacity is significant.
Response to that, or just we?
Yeah, those are all,
Yeah.
certainly, true that, the water availability, the water flows through each reservoir. If 30 million gallons, was taken out and never replaced, it would have an impact. You know, the Catawba Water Duke Energy is a member of that, and also there is a model that predicts reservoir changes. We got some slides here that shows. This is kind of the water cycle for the Catawba Water. Shows you how much water goes into the system and then flows out through the water hydro station on a daily basis. How much water is available in storage across the system. And Duke Energy is the reservoir operators for their hydro facility. So, you know, it takes a collaboration, it takes a partnership to make it all work so that it doesn't have the impacts that you're describing. And so we're committed to this process. The thing that I failed to mention in my talk is we're relying on this model that the Catawba Water is developing for the current update. They're in year 4 of 5 years of development, and the model has been updated, but they're in the scenario runs and the prediction, the forecast, which our demands are included as well as all the other utility members. And here's a picture of who all are utility members across the basin. And so everybody's demands and forecasts for 50 years will be included in that model. And it will predict outcomes and impacts of reservoirs over that 50-year period, which IBT will be a piece of that. And so we're looking for that model. We chose not to pursue our own model. A lot of these requests use either a state developed model, or some systems have to develop a model if there's not one present. And so we're choosing to use the Catawba Water model for the decision-making process to go forward. Yes, ma'am.
How much of the 30 million gallons that you're asking to be transferred to the other basin on the other side of Charlotte, how much of that's going to come back to us? The water,
So
how much is going to come back to us?
if we pursue an additional IBT modification,
30.
so if it's up to 30, we haven't asked for that specific number, but if whatever number it is, if that's where we wind up, it would be a transfer.
So it does not come back. I just want to make sure I
It's a
understand.
total transfer, right?
So we're going to be out.
So that water would not make it back to the site.
So this idea, so reservoir, so we would have to rely on Duke Energy to replace the water from one of their other reservoirs, right? And remember,
Manage the system as the reservoir operator.
and we've gone through 2 years at 93 to 95 feet because of dam repair, work, and we're really thankful for that dam or the bladder system. We're really thankful for that.
Right.
But we want water. So how does that affect our water? I just want your opinion on how this will affect our water 10 years down the road.
So if we make a modification request for whatever that volume is, it looks out over 30 years. And so in 30 years, we might be at that number of transfer. It won't happen on a daily basis. There will be things that we hope occur through the process that identify mitigating factors, you know, demand side management would be one of those. Is there other sources that we could look for to offset a transfer request? We're hoping to engage stakeholders that can help us identify and shape what alternatives that we look for. In 10, 20 years, there may be more transfer that occurs. And the system would have to, with Duke's help as a partner in the Catawba Water would continue to be the reservoir operator to help manage the system of inflows and outflows of each reservoir. The model looks at when are the decades of elevations in the reservoirs that dip below critical levels. And there's a definition of that. So folks that want to be more engaged and interested in that should follow the development from the Catawba Water of the integrated water resources plan, which is the new master plan.
Gentleman here in the blue. Yes, sir.
Well, first off, I appreciate all the hard work that y'all did. I was in sales for 4 years. And I'll be blunt, this is what I call a dog and pony show. Everything looks real nice in print. But the people that are here, here's the reason, because we care what happens where we're at. This is our backyard. I hunt and fish on the Waterbury River and the lake. I fish all the way down and hunt all the way down to Santee. What I look at is some simple questions. One, what would be a go, no go? In other words, what would prevent y'all from doing this? Is it just a matter of time and providing the right permits in the right states to the powers that be? And just saying, yeah, we got it figured out. Don't worry about them. They'll be fine. You know, Duke Power's going to manage the water downstream. They'll be okay. They might not drink as much and they might not water their yard, but you know, we've learned something. I've learned something. I think the two young ladies right in front of me will attest that all politics are local. Right now, we're talking to local people and we just want to know how it's going to affect us and what, if we so chose to stop it. Probably nothing. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Appreciate your long trip and don't take Highway 97 back.
Yeah.
You'll get hit by a deer or vice versa, right, everybody? All right. I've heard from our great Army veteran about the issue about decreasing the quantity of flow in the river. That also decreases the quality, and we'll need some help from DHEC on that, on the particulates and contaminants in the water. Secondly, you mentioned 117 million gallons are already coming out. Does this additional number, whether it's 30 million gallon IBT or not, beyond the current 33, is there to be an additional quantity taken out of the Catawba River? That's my first question.
So when I take your question, will our demands go up and our withdrawals to serve Charlotte community increase?
If you take more IBT into the Rocky River, does that infer that there will be more water taken out of the Catawba Basin?
It will be, as our system grows, as our demands go up,
I think you're gonna say yes.
yeah, there will be more, water withdrawn from the Catawba. Some of that water
Okay.
will go across the ridge and be transferred.
How much more?
Well, we're predicting out that in 30 years, it could be as much as that in the blue. So it could be as little as 47 to 57, somewhere in that.
An increase of 57 million gallons.
That's great.
And that further reduces our flow. Okay, I got it. Is that correct?
Would it further reduce the flow?
And that Catawba to the water reed to Camden.
I think we're relying on the model to predict that question.
So I think that's a yes. And the point there is, secondly, you mentioned the Catawba Water Authority, the planning group. And we talked to Lewa and we talked to all those. Their planning model goes out to 2100. So why don't you bring into this group, and especially when we get into the work sessions, a complete plan? This is all straight line on the model, I understand, but why don't you have 2100 instead of 2055?
This is intended to be for the state required process to look out.
All right, I will tell you that based on where we are in our thinking, we want to be in collaboration and harmony with the total state plan of the Catawba Water Reed plan, which is out 2100. Okay. And now, can you back up to the plan where you showed the location in South Carolina of water and treatment plants? Right, no, back in South Carolina. Please go. That was the last one. No, it's a map. Yeah. You got great graphics, by the way. Right there.
Okay.
Just for correction, there are other wastewater treatment authorities in Kershaw County. You got Camden, but you also have Kershaw County is missing.
These are just members of the Kentucky Water.
Yeah, just saying, but in terms of players. And I bet you Kershaw County is going to join that group. All right. And then the other input is the input from Colorado Utilities, which takes a good portion from Columbia and it comes into the water rate. And the point there is you have 4 inputs in Kershaw County to the particulate issue in terms of the density of contamination that goes up with a decrease in the amount of water that comes in. My next takeaway is very clearly, having been on staffs all over the world in my life, I would tell you that we probably need to figure out how the state and the COGS and Camden, we have our mayor here, would want to have stakeholders represented, so you don't get disparate inputs. And disparate inputs are good, as you heard from tonight, these very passionate citizens. But we need to figure out, mayor and the rest of us, how we want to input, so these folks get a considered reply. And the last thing has to do with demand. Your model is built on the demand based on planning and zoning. And we heard that 1,800 new houses were opened up in Lake Norman just recently in the last, I think, 24 hours. That means cosmic growth of houses and factories that puts the demand on you. Some of this needs to come back to a dialogue between the state of South Carolina and the state of North Carolina stakeholders that says you can't build any more townhouses, or you need to constrain those. But the question I was put to me by the river keepers, and you know who they are, is what can you do in addition to the planning and zoning issue, giving feedback to people that want to build a house that doesn't have sewer, that shouldn't have sewer because you're going to hurt us downstream. What is the feedback you have in terms of how you're going to do a reduction in water requirements, sprinkling lawns and things of that nature? Is there anything that might be done in a regulatory way in terms of the use of water?
I think that's something that we need to, that's great input.
Let me give some
We have
answers.
ordinances, we do have ordinances, we're part of the low inflow protocol that is, basin wide, but you're talking about, new connections. If I'm understanding your question, how do we limit new?
Yeah, I was a commander in the desert, for example, the Mojave Desert. And water is more than just scarce there. So you're bringing in high efficiency fixtures
Yeah.
and xeriscaping and things of that nature.
Yes, no
It
flow.
needs to be a part of all of our discussion, just in terms
Got
of
it.
conservation. Yeah,
Got it.
that's all.
Got it.
And that's all I've got to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, building standards, low flow fixtures, got
Over to
it,
you, Mayor.
got it.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late, but we had the council meeting, we're just getting out. But I guess this might seem like a stupid comment to some people, but why did we not know about these meetings? I heard about it from North Carolina. And then I got our utilities director and also our COG director involved, but we knew absolutely nothing about these meetings going on. And as a city that depends on the Wateree River for water, I think we should have been treated a little better than this. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
It might be less technical. Thank you all very much for coming. Any of you on the panel have lived on Lake Wateree? Any of you have property up there? Lake Norman, yeah, that's a different cat. That's a big old animal right there. It has been mentioned. Just for a little brief comment there on your travels with y'all, and we thank you so much for coming. do y'all ever take a Duke representative with y'all on y'all's panel?
We haven't, to this point as a part of the panel. Is that a suggestion that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
No, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, living on that water reading is a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
In all of our lives and all of mine, and I'm gonna have to back up a little bit. We've always had the answer to DHEC. We've always had the answer to Duke. You can't do anything without going there. You know, I mean, that's just it. I mean, they just hold off cards. And now I'm finding out we're ignorant to Charlottesville. But there's a little bit in that too. It just keeps on getting a little bigger and a little bigger.
Mhm.
Bottom line is to have just one copy. About 16 years ago, everybody used to get the state newspaper. Paper. In the state newspaper, there was a section called the Metro. Anybody remember that, the Metro? The headlines of the Metro, when it delivered to my office that day, I always read it first. Lake Puerto Rico, kept secret in the state of South Carolina. And that's the headlines. For a lot of us, we feel pretty strong about it, and we'd ask y'all to please be careful. Because it seems to have deteriorated.
Thank you, sir. I saw another, and by the way, this will be a stakeholder. So that may be something that they need.
But they need to be here,
Yeah,
and you be here.
yes.
How was this meeting communicated to the people in this area? I didn't hear about it. 10 o'clock.
Right, so there was, and where is Leslie and our PR folks? In terms of locating the local newspaper and county seat. Because I'm hearing, yeah, so was that not advertised here or?
No,
Is there something that-
I got it from North Carolina. I heard it from North Carolina.
From the North Carolina side?
Yes, and, so I heard nothing. And as I said, I called my utilities director, the COG director, what's going on with this? Why, you know, we
Right,
were not notified about this meeting. Then I tried to figure out, well, why is Florence having a meeting? They're not in this basin, so, you know, it's just a lot of unanswered questions
right,
around this, and to be as big a player as we are in this,
right.
we should have had more information and we should have been notified.
Point well taken.
I asked this question earlier and a gentleman, I'm still here. He gave me a little slip of paper and said it was in the Camden Chronicle on May 28th and Kershaw New Era on May 29th.
Okay,
Okay, I didn't see it. We get the Kershaw paper, the Camden paper. I heard about it via email from Vincent Shaheen this morning, about 10 o'clock, I think, today. So, and that was through Facebook, and then we tried to get it out among the Lake Watery people that we knew. So again, one notice on something this important in the paper and end of May, and I don't know what it looked like, but obviously it was not very big.
okay.
Can you demand another meeting where we're notified so we can get?
Yeah, attendance is key.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, that may be something we want to consider if you go to, here, because that's part of the reason why we're here. That is to receive comments from the public about the request. We do respond, to the comments that we get. And so if you go to IBT project here, send us an email and we'll consider that and what we're doing. You know, I don't want to commit, now. You do know that there's a public, comment period that ends the, end of August. And so there's opportunity there for us to receive lots of comments, between now and the end of that comment period.
Is Hickory above the withdrawal?
Hickory is above, they're upstream.
Why are you having two meetings there and one unannounced meeting here?
Yeah, the reason that we are, well, and unannounced, I really would like to follow up on the information regarding what was put in the newspaper, because, our folks were pretty, deliberate with making sure that we got it out of the newspaper. I'm really kind of shocked.
The digital age.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense,
Yeah,
the news should have been promoting this.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 other places to put this.
yeah.
Should have done social media.
Right. So, and that's, and I think that's a very fair comment for us to take back too, is what is the social media, channels that, we are using in advertising. So I see the regulators standing up here, so let me give him the mic.
I just want to expound on something. I agree with her. North Carolina law requires us to put in let me get it correctly, a paper in each county of general circulation. It's a 1940s law. We got, wait, hold, I was deposed from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock based on a notification because the consultant put it in all the major big papers. We did electronic and all that, and we got stung because it was one county that didn't get it in their paper. And only about 12 people seriously had a actual, what is it called, a subscription. Can you believe that? I agree with you, but it's the North Carolina law.
I get it.
But this law, the reason it's North Carolina law because North Carolina.
Yeah, but you're sure.
But I agree with you. I wish you was in my deposition.
Yeah.
It's a valid point. Most of us here understand the galleys to be served in the paper or whatever. You got the red tape you have to go through for your job. We all do the same thing, but if you really want the public to know, why didn't you get on social media? The realtor in the room, let most of us know through a Facebook group. And in this day and age, everybody's on Facebook or Instagram. That's the new Google. And it just gives the appearance that you didn't want people here.
Right.
That's a very fair statement.
Or at least notify the mayor. She could have put something. Just
Put it on the website.
But I'm a native Charlottean and I'm recently moved to this area. And fishing is what brought me here. So water quality and quality of life and getting away from the hustle and that living is why. So it's very important that we understand what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Other comments?
I'm just curious, South Carolina is purportedly right now the #1 fastest growing state, relocation, building, whatever. What is it that Charlotte thinks it needs more water than what we need right now? And that they feel that their growth is more appropriate than what's going on in the state of South Carolina? It's all heading down from you all. There's more growth here. I'm just curious as how it's all being seen.
I don't know that I can really address that. All I can tell you is, we're looking at forecasts for the Charlotte Service District that we serve. We're a regional utility. We serve part of York County, with water. And, I think every community, that's a member of the Catawba Watery is also looking at their water needs for the future. You got a former utility director here. And he can tell you, in North Carolina, Linwood mentioned it, there's local water supply planning. It looks out 50 years. We do have 50-year plans that are included in the Catawba Watery water management modeling. And so all of that forecast is baked into the modeling that will result in determination of water availability, reservoir level impacts, all those things that you're kind of asking questions about. But your local community here has their data in that model. And so it's not I'm not trying to paint a picture that, you know, this is just a Charlotte need, it's a basic need. Everybody needs water, every community's growing for the reason that you're talking about. And so unfortunately, some of that's happening in Charlotte too. And we just need to plan for it. And we need to be proactive in communicating and transparent about what the plan is.
Thank
So
you.
we need to be doing the same thing.
You mentioned a model that was developed, I believe, by some other organization. And we all know that the model is only as good as its assumptions and the inputs. So one of the questions is, what are the demands from South Carolina, the South Carolina water needs, are those part of the model?
They are.
They are.
They are. And I don't know if Rob or Linwood, but, that model was started by Duke. It's now in the hands of the Catawba Water Management Group. It's required by the Supreme Court settlement when South Carolina sued North Carolina to have a model and a plan for the Catawba Water Basin. I believe through the PPAC process, the model for Catawba Water is the model for the basin. Has that been decided?
Yeah, so DHEC, soon to be, like I said, DES, we are the planning program starting July 1. Right now, DNR has it, but the hydrology group is coming over to us, and we do the permitting, both us and the former DNR people that are coming to us. We're both members of the groundwater or the Catawba Water Management Group. We serve on the technical advisory committees that are doing models, give them our input, our data that we have. We have a fairly robust model as well. It starts at Lake Wiley and works its way all the way down to the coast. This model is going to take North Carolina side and our side and put them together. And we're working very closely with them. And Leanne Monroe's here with me, and she's part of the modeling process and helps out with that.
Good luck.
So we are currently working on a Catawba Water model. Okay, this is North Carolina and South Carolina, and our growth and our needs and future. Also part of this is a water planning process we have in our state. And the Catawba water planning process, where this model is, has enough input and enough data over the last probably 10 years now, that we feel strongly it's the best model for us to use for our planning, just for our state, not just for North Carolina and South Carolina. So we're very, very active in this model and the planning and the input, the output. We have annual water use that comes to us. We also regulate discharges and inputs. And we put all of that information on about a 5-year basis now. How often are we updating that model that Duke and then we're doing? 5 years.
5 to 10.
That's really good for surface water models. Surface water models are very complex and they take a lot of time. So we're looking at inputs and outputs and updating all of the latest data. Growth in both North Carolina and South Carolina has increased dramatically over the last 10 years, especially in this area. So we're taking that into consideration for putting this model together. They're pretty close to having that model completed and ready to start bringing it out to the public and taking a look at it. And we're going to be very integral in that. And we'll be happy to be involved and bring you guys involved because it does affect you guys on a daily basis.
My last question, with the new DHEC standards on water quality, what effect will that have on us downstream by taking more water out and not putting it back with the, excuse me, contaminants will be greater. So how do we as a city combat that when, you know, we are getting more than we normally get and we can't handle what we're getting now?
So as you know, at Lake Wiley, Lake Wateree, Lake Norman, we have minimum water levels that they have to keep. Okay, Duke Power, Dominion Energy, they're keeping these water levels on your lake is within that 5-foot radius as much as they can. I mean, these have low inflow protocols that we discussed earlier. Those are in effect and were put into the FERC licensing, which came out of this 2010 decision, that there are minimum flows based on what the water levels in all the lakes along the whole entire Catawba water system has. And so we're not sure what kind of effects it will have yet, but we know the model will be able to at least give us some good ideas of what that will be. So part of our job in the next 3 years, when they start doing this technical work, is to evaluate exactly what you're asking for. But we don't have the data yet to evaluate that. We could come up and make some assumptions, but I think it would be way too early for that. But that is definitely on our mind as well as on North Carolina's mind and Charlotte. They need to keep their lake levels at the same level, but all of the lakes in line are all run by the same group, FERC, the Federal Energy Commission. And they have to they have minimum levels that we have to keep. These are 50-year.
What she's talking about is the water flow below the dam
PFAS.
where we have to treat sewage
Good
and the
thing.
water in the river. Right now, the water in the river is very low, it's dry.
Yeah, you're a splash
I
down.
mean, its quality and the quantity are interrelated, so that sewer plants are gonna be impacted. Somebody's gotta pay for how you upgrade the sewer plant
Well, not only the sewer plant, our drinking water as well.
and the drinking water.
The Bureau of Water, we handle both water quantity and water quality, and we know that they are joined together. That's why they're in one bureau. And DHEC has 4 different bureaus that deal with air, land, water, coastal stuff, as well as. We put everything in water, in the Bureau of Water, because we know water quantity and water quality are greatly affected. And we are working on Java as well as the watering from the standpoint of how can we reduce the nutrients that are causing some of the outcomes. So that, we're working hard on that and have been for years. And we're going to keep working. Hopefully we can work together with you guys.
Yeah, and I will say Charlotte is a party to the nutrient management, planning and the new standard development for lake watering. There's a group of utilities dischargers that are trying to help work with DHEC on the modeling effort for lake watering to determine the nutrient loading and what impacts it has and what mitigating factors, what kind of treatment, what kind of other control measures, buffers, and all those other things that people talk about in nutrient management. Charlotte's already a party to that. There was a party to that when there was a model being developed back in.
It's been close to 12 years, because we've been working on these models, and it's very complicated when it comes to assembly capacity. That's how much of the nutrients can be taken up by the natural biological activities in the river. And when it exceeds it, we have to come up with what we call TMDLs, which are total maximum daily loads. What we can control is permits. So as Charlotte's, because they also have a wastewater. So it is, how do we start reducing these total maximum daily, or reducing these nutrients through the TMDLs, the total maximum daily loads? There are other activities we can work on, and we are working on some models. DHEC has a new contract with a modeling group to help us look at other aspects, not just the permits, because the permits are a small part of what's adding to the nutrients. Lots of other things that are added to it, as well as stormwater runoff, different activities of nuclear structure, different things like that. And we are working very hard on determining what other best management practices we can continue to work on to reduce those. So the water quality is being worked on today. It's not sitting here waiting on Charlotte, I promise you.
Yes.
We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
All my questions.
From Vicky Taylor online, they ask, do you have an estimated cost of returning the water to the Catawba Watery Basin?
We don't. Yes, it's too early in the process.
We estimated at the concept level, and it's dated now, but it was hundreds of millions of dollars at the concept level estimate.
I don't have anything definitive at this point.
From Krista Hall online, they ask, what can property owners at Lake Watery do to stop Charlotte taking the lake water? I have grown up in the Carolinas and own property just east of Charlotte, as well as on Lake Watery. Charlotte has grown so quickly in the last few years and completely different than it was 50 years ago. Perhaps the building needs to slow down to help preserve resources. Also, you need to find a way to reduce the taxes we pay to own lake property. We are paying high taxes for lake property that continues to go down. NC needs to take water from NC, not SC. Take Lake Norman water in NC.
Yes. Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll take that question and if you will, just make sure that gets to our Charlotte Water IBT website and so forth and answer that.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's one more thing from
Yeah.
Krista Hall. Lake Watery property owners should be able to vote on this. Is there going to be a vote or are these meetings just telling us?
Well, we're early in the process. The decision will be made by the EMC as stated by Linwood. However, there are many, many opportunities. We are early in the process to provide input and or listen and participate in our stakeholder workshops that are more in depth. Also, questions and comments can be sent to IBT project at charlottenc.gov. Again, as we stated before, we are very, very early. This is a long process. We are at step 2 of a 12 to 15 step process, and it would take many years for the utility to go through this process. So, yeah, that's where we are.
So I've got a question. I came tonight to try and learn and see exactly what's going on. I've been
Sure.
at this meeting at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. From Charlotte originally, lived in Union County and now here at the lake. I knew today you're giving us the 30,000 foot view of what potentially is going to happen. But I'd like to understand a little better. I keep hearing manufacturing, irrigation, housing, et cetera. I know you know the numbers. What are the percentages, how that water is being distributed right now, especially in the IBT? Where's that going?
As far as what the demands are by category,
Correct, percentage wise.
yeah, it's mostly residential.
Okay, so
And
you're
there's a
probably doing,
component of that that includes irrigation.
what about manufacturing?
Manufacturing in the Rocky River Basin is less than it is at the top. Percentage wise, but I don't know.
I'm very familiar. I'm guessing probably less than 5%.
You're probably right.
So what type of fail safes as we go forward? I know where you guys are here, you make money by producing water, treat water, that's what you do. And understood, we need. But I was on a project in Union County and we got told we couldn't handle the influence of sewage system, the septic system would not handle the amount of projects we were putting in. They put a moratorium on it for like 3 or 4 years, put a lot of people out of business, but it was the right thing to do because we couldn't get rid of the influence. We had the water capacity, but we couldn't get rid of all the houses. You know, what was going to come from all the development was so fast. So what are the fail safes you guys have in place based on rooftops of that IBT? Because if you keep coming back 10 years from now, we keep the can down the road and say, well, we've got 20,000 more houses up there. I mean, in the past, a community had wells, they had reservoirs they pumped into. I'm familiar with the Rocky River and the Yadkin. It's not a huge flowing body of water, but you can pull off the irrigation area, I mean, not irrigation, but reservoirs to house out water. You guys have any fail safes in place to slow down the demand that's going to come? Because if you keep doing this, what's going to happen is those houses will keep coming developed, those will keep coming like I was. Until I can get approval from zoning, we build a house, and we take the water. We make money and you make money. What are the fail safes? Because at some point, this river's not going to be able to handle the demand of what you're putting on it. And the people that live here, in my opinion, should be getting preferential treatment. We've been residents of the community and tried to preserve the water that we have. Are there some numbers out there that I keep hearing models, but what are we saying? What are the numbers?
Yeah, I think and you don't want to hear the model, but the Catawba Lottery is asking that very question. How much is too much? And when, what year, what decade? If it's past 2100, when does that occur? You know, when is too much IBT out of the top? Too much. And how do we get the water back from the Yak, which has much more water than the Catawba? So all those are questions that are are percolating in the top water management process. And so we're relying on that planning organization to help inform some of those questions. You know, as far as Charlotte goes, you know, every community has a planning group that plans for the community. And we, as the utility provider, are charged with trying to meet, you know, the growth of the community. And that's why we're here, is trying to meet that growth of the community. You bring up some points that I think would be good comments about, is there alternatives to potable sources for irrigation and other uses? And those are, I think, comments that we would love to see, maybe work their way as an alternative. Could wells be, installed and little potable connections to the system? Reuse, we mentioned. So all those things are valid comments that, we'd love to see you make.
Well, the key to that, I think, is people are gonna continue to come because we have a quality of life here that everybody wants. And I know in America, you can't say don't come, but they shut several big projects down because we absolutely couldn't handle what we're trying to put on the system. At what point, where's the fail safe? Where are you guys gonna say, okay, we can't accept that 4,000 homes that's going on the other side of Rocky Creek or on the other side of Rocky River Golf Course? Very familiar with the area. So who says, or is there, let's say no, or do we say, build it, we'll provide the utility?
I think it has to be planned for. There may be a day in the future that has to happen. We're not there now.
We think we are. Yeah.
I understand the local folks here think we're there. Everybody's got to protect their own community, right? And so we're here to hear what your concerns are and try and get them addressed in our process and make sure that we include the right key stakeholders that can help us work up alternatives that we'll be studying to try and mitigate whatever requests we make, whether it mitigates it totally or mitigates a portion.
So nothing we say here counts, you have to send it in writing.
We're capturing it.
Yeah.
Everything's being recorded, so all your comments are being recorded. We're gonna
Yes.
capture those. But if you want to make it specific to get it in the record for sure, if you can see it, I would make it through the email link. Yes, ma'am.
So in terms of, I brought up demand, a couple other people have brought up demand, Ron talked about demand. Is Charlotte planning and zoning involved in this process? They should be.
Zoning is not involved in the water process. Zoning is involved in the whole planning of the community.
Yes, but they're creating, helping create demand. They need to know the cost of that demand on the utilities, and I think they should be part of this process. Because demand is part of the issue. Especially you're talking about going 5, 10, 20 years down the road and needing more IBT. And not just Charlotte, but also those on the other side of the ridge.
Great comment. Where's the, sir?
Angela, I'm not sure where we're at with slides, so if you could go back about 6 slides right ahead, but could you find the one that shows the watering data and all the different things that go in and out? That's that one.
Is that the one? Okay.
Mr. Devlin pointed out that we've got a really complex model available, and it seems to be a good one that they're using. But I've heard other people say we want to keep it simple. So I just want to try to put it in perspective. If I'm looking at this slide here, on the downstream end of the basin, where the watering dam is, it showed that we've got 3,338 million gallons a day going over the dam. So I take that as basically what's left over after all the other uses are accounted for. We still have 3,300 million gallons a day available left over. And I know 30 million gallons that you're asking for transfer sounds like a lot of water. But when if I do the math, if I do it right in my head, I take 30 million gallons and I divide it by the 3,300 million gallons, what you're asking for simply is about a 1% increase, if my math is right. And I just wanted to put that in perspective.
So is that for over time, that graph for over time, or is it
That's daily.
That's
daily spend time?
So what you see is all the water coming into the basin
That's pretty good.
at the top. You got public water supply, that's the net withdrawal. That includes water pulled out and water discharged back, and then any losses. You got industrial consumption, power consumption, agricultural irrigation. You got the evaporative effect, which is the largest use of water in the system on a daily basis. So all those taken out of that top number should add up to the 3,338 million per day. That's how much flows through the system by everybody's intake along the river.
That's the average, right?
That's the average data.
And so what needs to be done is that needs to be looked at for low inflow conditions.
And that's,
You have to run through a condition like we're in now, where the flow is close to minimum coming through water reclaim.
Yeah, they have to model the draft of record.
Right.
That's one requirement.
2007, correct?
I mean, the entire, when that free licensing was done and all that model was developed, everybody said we can live with this amount of flow for each of these sections of the river. So that's probably way more than what that average daily flow is a good bit more than what the minimum flow was.
So at stage 4, severe drought requirement for Wiley is 700 CFS. And the requirement for water release is 800 CFS.
But today it's releasing 1,000. It's only 200 over that day. It's a drop period,
Yes.
but they have to play through.
Mr. Devlin, I've just got one question. So we're talking to Charlotte right now about their demand. Northern Lancaster is booming. So in a year, are we gonna be sitting here having another conversation with a different person saying they want 30 million gallons? Or is that included in all this?
What will be included in all that in our modeling is our statewide water planning and basin planning that we're having. And we're currently working on the Catawba River Basin, probably, where are they starting at?
Oh, we've already started.
Okay, so Catawba Water Management Group is doing it. So they're already working on that. And I actually, if you guys are not involved, get in contact with us and we'll get you the information to help get yourself involved. As the planning process is completed or in its stages, we'll have some public meetings and we'll give you guys a chance to see what is, and that will be South Carolina side. But it will also take into consideration what North Carolina is bringing. So when we are taking that model, we're looking at what's coming out of Wiley. So, and then we go from there on our planning aspects of that. And we're gonna be having that modeling. When all of our basins are done, we have 3 left, 2 to 3, is that correct? When all 7 of the models are done, we will then begin to work on a state water plan. And that's another time that we can all get together and have a lot of this process of reuse water, water demands and the things that you're talking about. A lot of what you're talking about is local. So these are local conditions and building codes and ordinances and things like that. But I believe we should push some of these things on a statewide basis as well. I mean, we're going to start growing like Charlotte is. We're already seeing it in certain parts of Charlotte, but oh my God. Beaufort, Lancaster, Rock Hill. So we're getting growth too. So yes, but South Carolina, we're looking at it very strongly on a daily basis, and we've got a couple different groups in our organization all working together. That includes water quantity and the water quality aspects of it.
Any other comments or questions? I know it's close to, got 5 more minutes before 8. Okay, well, again, thank you all for coming. I hope this was informative, definitely informative for us. And we will definitely be providing updates Please stay tuned to the charlottewateribt.org website. That's gonna house everything, including tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.